All right, hello everybody. Let's see if I can widen this so I can see a little bit. There we go. Here we go. How's everyone doing? Welcome to Live TYRO Uncuffed. My name is Ron Tijerina, and I want to just be on for a few. I got something took place today, and I want to share with you an experience I had, the question that was asked to me, and because I don't know if you know what I do for a living, but I work with a lot of men and a lot of people who formerly incarcerated, currently incarcerated, people that find themselves on the welfare end of life, and they just can't seem to get off of that highway. And one of the things that I work with is a lot of people who just keep winding up in the same place, but they have great intentions of not going back to the penitentiary, not going back to the joint, but they just can't seem to hit that right note in their life, that song that rings true in their heart, what helps them stay focused. And we're talking about staying maniacally focused, staying laser pointed focus, right? Where you are so laser focused that you know what you need to do every day you wake up. You know what you have to do in order to stay out of the joint. And sometimes, you know what, you have great intentions, but you just can't seem to hit that song, hit that right note in your life. You keep finding yourself repeating the same mistake over and over and over again. Well, today I want to talk about, how do you stay out of the joint? Why do you keep going back to prison? Why do you keep losing your job? Because prison isn't just being incarcerated physically. Prison is also being locked up constantly. You have a moment in your life where you wake up, something happens to you, and you find yourself where, you know what, I'm never going to do this again. And you make a decision. In fact, you make a conscious decision that you're not going to do the same mistakes you made before, so you don't look like what you don't want to look like anymore. But you can't seem to figure it out. You can't seem to stay focused. You always get distracted. There are things in your life that always take you off your goal, your objectives, your agenda, and you find yourself falling back, getting held back, repeating the same mistakes over and over again, only to wake up saying to yourself, gosh dang it, here I am again. And you find yourself, if you would have just stayed focused, you would have been so far ahead of the game, so far ahead of your own self, because let me go back to the game, right? I just said that. If you don't know how to play the game, you're always going to get played. Let me tell you that right now. This game called life, this situation called life, there's a measure in pain and suffering in everybody's life, man. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to give you two secrets tonight. I'm going to tell you two things that you can begin right now helping you achieve what you're trying to achieve. I'm going to give you two things, right? We're talking about the first one, I already said it, pain and suffering. Second one is remembering this feeling, right? Remembering what you experienced. So the first one is pain and suffering. Second one is feeling. I'm writing it down, right? So when you experience trauma, listen, if you came into this world, right, every one of us has a degree of suffering in our life. You cannot be exempt from it. Now, if you are going through life and you're telling people that you've never experienced any heartache and pain, that your life has been, I don't know, it's been perfect, right? That you've never experienced any type of trauma, any type of drama in your life, well, I'm going to call you out, because that's not true. You've been hurt. You've been disappointed, right? You've been offended, each and every one. If you were born as a human being, you are not exempt from the cares, the what do we call this? The challenges of life. You have to have it. In order to be human, you will be tested, you will be tried, you will be checked, you will feel pain, you will feel sorrow, you will feel everything that comes with being a human being. Right? But now, how do you overcome this type of incarceration? How do you stop yourself from keep going to prison mentally? How do you stop yourself from keep going back to prison physically, emotionally, and yes, even spiritually? How do you end up, when you talk about freedom, how do you manifest that type of freedom within yourself that you never experienced what you experienced in your past life, right? In the past things that you've done? How do you learn and grow from the lessons that you're supposed to learn? When I was in prison, I remember this one instructor came in and started talking to us about the mistakes that we made. And I'm in a room filled with about 30 guys, and we're sitting there and we're listening to this guy harp on the mistakes that we made in life that end us up in prison. Now, I get it. You know what? Well, okay, mistakes are made. But as I began to listen to what he was saying, he wasn't trying to teach us. He was putting us in our place. He was trying to put us in a place where he was above us and we were beneath him. Now, granted, he was the instructor. I respect that. I'm humbled enough to know that, okay, so he knows something I don't know. But the way he delivered the message to us was that because of our mistakes, right, we couldn't get where he was at. But here's the mistake he was making. Instead of us looking at it as a mistake, now I had to raise my hand up and I said, okay, enough. You've been telling us that we made a lot of mistakes. Granted, we get that. But what you're missing is that if we learned from this mistake, it no longer becomes a mistake. We have to take our attitude away from seeing it as a mistake, but now put it in a different light. No longer do we see the glass half empty, but we see it half full. So we can take that mistake and we can turn it around and turn it into a lesson. So that what you say is a mistake, I say it's a life lesson, something I've learned from, something I've grown from, something that has made me better, not bitter, right? It put me in a place of where that pain is suffering, that experience I had in my life was just that, an experience in my life. No longer was that what I was experiencing and a lifestyle. It was becoming an event in my life. You see, when people find themselves incarcerated financially, right, where they just can't seem to get past check by check, they're living week to week, day by day. They just can't seem to start saving any type of income. They can't see themselves saving money for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, for the next 15 years, because they're living check by check, and they have this mentality that this is the best they can do. You see, what should have been an event or experience, an event in their life has become a lifestyle. In other words, say you lost your job, you got fired, whatever happened, they laid you off, and now you go back and do a job, you get fired, you get laid off, whatever happens, and you keep repeating this cycle, right? This cycle of imprisonment, of being in getting fired and not being able to hold your job, maintain a steady income to where you can begin to put money aside, where you can begin to pay your bills, when you can begin to have good credit, when you can begin to start dreaming outside of this check by check mentality, right? Where you begin to learn and grow, right? But when you're put in a place where this is the best you can do and you have this mindset and you begin to live this experience, now it becomes a lifestyle to you. And that's the best you can go. Instead of seeing whatever it is you're experiencing as an event, not a lifestyle, you can overcome it. And what am I talking about? You know, so somebody today was asking me, what was it in your life that you knew that you had to do to embrace to never go back to prison? We're talking about physical prison, but it's the same scenario, same principle you need to activate in your life so you never go back to, you know, nobody wants to be poor. It takes a lot of work to be poor. Nobody wants to be dead broke. It takes a lot of energy and effort to stay broke, right? Nobody wants to be, not growing in their intellect. You know, we want to stimulate what we're doing every day. We want to learn something. We want to challenge ourselves. But when you become stagnant and you no longer want to empower yourself to grow, well, then guess what? That's a form of incarceration. That's a form of being locked up here, because now you no longer want to read. You don't want to write. You want to just watch the idiot box, right? You want to binge watch. You know, something like that. That's all they want to do is watch, binge. How many of you do you know that are addicted to soap operas? Right, where they can tell you the scenario of a soap opera like it's real life, like it's really happening. Come on now, you know somebody who watches General Hospital or one of those, I don't even remember what they're called, Golden Years, I don't know what they're called, a soap opera, right? And they watch these shows so religiously, they can't miss it. They need to have it. They need their fix of what's happening. I remember back when I was younger, Luke and Laura. Maybe I'm telling you, right? Maybe you don't know who Luke and Laura was, but they were the thing back in the day. But everybody talked about them. Everybody wanted to know what was going to happen to Luke and Laura. Why? Because we were all addicted to it. We were all hypnotized by something that wasn't real. We allowed something outside of ourselves to hypnotize us, to convince us that this was the best we can do. Live vicariously through some fake character, fake life, so that we could see ourselves better or feel good about our circumstances because Luke and Laura were going through their problems and it wasn't as worse as mine or something, or whatever happening, whatever hypnotized you to get stuck in that rut. Well, that's like everything else in our lives, right? If you're at a dead-end job and you just can't seem to get ahead, but you're afraid to try to go back to school. You're afraid to try to maybe get a better job. You're afraid to see if you can get promoted. You're afraid to ask for a raise. You're afraid to even talk to the foreman. What's it going to take to get promoted in this place? You're afraid. You see, this is a type of prison that you placed yourself in. You're limiting yourself. You put a cap on your success. You put a cap on your ability. Why? Because fear can paralyze you and incarcerate you from moving forward because you're afraid of what others will say. And sometimes a lot of it is when the peers that we hang around with, because we don't see them excelling. We don't see them pushing forward in life. Birds of a feather, I say this all the time, flock together. If the people around you aren't moving forward, if they're satisfied and content where they're at, collecting food stamps, right? Living check by check, right? Going out and buying the cigarettes every night, getting drunk every day. If that's you, I want to challenge you. Get up, change your attitude, change what you're, of course you want to go. Sometimes you got to change your friends, right? You got to change your friends. So how do you get free? Okay, so one of the things that I encourage people, and I get to talk to them all, I'm going to be in a facility tomorrow and speak in a facility, and when I say facility, a penitentiary tomorrow. Right, so I want to share this with you, right? One of the secrets for men and women who come out of prison, who literally walk out. Now, right, this is the manifestation, right? You can see it physically of what happens, but you got to see yourself doing this spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. You have to live this, what I'm going to describe to you, in those three areas of your life also in order to stay free, in order to stay free. Because if you forget what I'm about to share with you, you begin to fall back asleep. You begin to reprogram yourself to be incarcerated in one of these areas of your life, two of these areas of your life, three of them, or all four of them. And when you begin to form these walls that can't be seen, but only you can see them, you know it, right? You begin to fall back asleep before you know it. You don't even realize you're incarcerated before it's too late. It's too late. So what's the first secret? When you walk out of the penitentiary, and everybody who can attest to this, who's ever been county jail, right, rehab center, right, a treatment facility, the penitentiary, a federal prison, it doesn't matter, because when they walk out, right, and they hear this sound, and whatever this sound is in that scenario, whether it's a door slamming, right, whether it's a sliding gate closing up, whatever it is, when they walk out, that individual takes a deep breath and say, oh my gosh, I'm out, I'm free. And that feeling, that essence, that experience that person has is so overwhelming. It's an unbelievable excitement and joy, where it just sets you in a place where, wow, I made it. I survived. I can do this. I made it. I lived through it. Now, how about some of you that have gone through some divorces and maybe you were afraid, maybe there was a violent situation and you had to get out, but you were afraid to get out because you didn't know if you could make it. But once you made that conscious decision, I'm getting out of this toxic relationship, you got out of it, and all of a sudden you realize, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not dead. I'm not dying. I can do this. You see, this is that fear that paralyzes us from believing there's something greater waiting for us as long as we take that step forward. And remember, here's the secret. And remember the feeling that we felt. Listen to me. Remember the feeling that you felt when you were set free, when you walked out of that situation, when you walked out of that place, when you walked out of that place in your mind and broke the chains that were holding you back, when you walked out spiritually and felt yourself becoming resurrected, right? We just finished that resurrection, and you felt yourself walking out, right? And all these shackles and everything that was holding you back from success began to fall off, and you began to feel light. You began to hold your head up. You began to put your back straight, shoulders up high, and you began to believe in yourself. You began to say, I can do it. If I can overcome that, I can overcome anything. Well, you were that day. If you remember that day, But then something happened to you. Something happened to you that you forgot that experience that you had, that moment in time. You see, why do people go back to prison? Why do you go back to a toxic relationship? Why do you go back to drinking? Why do you go back to getting high? Why do you go back to that life that you said you would never go back to? I'm telling you, the secret is you forgot that day when you were set free. You forgot what you felt like. You forgot what you proclaimed. You forgot your decree. You see, you lived it out for a little while, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days, a week, a month, a year, but you started getting too relaxed. You started to let go. You started to let your hair down again, right? And you kept saying, you know what, I got this. But before you know it, because you weren't staying on your P's and Q's, because you weren't activating that sense of urgency. You see, I ask the question all the time to people that have been on parole or probation. How long are you on probation for? And when they answer, oh, I'm not on probation, or they say 3 or 4 years, I'm going to tell you, that's the wrong answer. That's the wrong answer, you see, because when you get a job and I ask you the question, how long are you on probation for? And they tell me 6 months, 90 days. You see, that's that wrong thinking. You got to change the whole way you see your life. Ask me, how long am I on probation for? And I will answer, for the rest of my life. Forever, right? Until I go home, right? This is how long you're on probation for. And if you can see your life through that lens, right, you will stay on your P's and Q's. You will stand up straight. You will be focused on everything that's coming at your way. You won't let something slip in unannounced, right? Because you're focused, you're conscious, you're laser focused about what? About your tomorrows. You're laser focused about your moment right now. You're not letting anyone or anything knock you off your square. Because why? You value your freedom. You value your freedom thought process. You value your emotions. You value your spiritual side. You value everything. And you're not going to take any of that for what? For granted ever again. You hear what I'm saying to you? You will never take it for granted again. Now, there's some of you that have been trying to kick that habit, whatever it is, right? And you just can't seem to do it. Well, that's because you're still hanging out with somebody. You're still listening to some voice in your head that's telling you it's okay. You see, sometimes you got to break away so far from the situation, right, in order to get free from it. That means you got to reach out to somebody. You might need to call somebody for help. You might need to do something drastically to live a drastic life. But if you're not willing to do something drastically to live this type of drastic freedom, right, I'm telling you what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Then you will always find yourself locking yourself up mentally, locking yourself up emotionally, locking yourself up spiritually, and yes, eventually, if not sooner, not one of the three, right, physically. You will repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Why? Because you never learned the lesson, right? Let me take it back to the beginning, right? You will repeat the mistakes because you never learned the lesson. How many of you out there ever been getting held back from school, right? When you were in high school. I was in 7th grade and I got held back in 7th grade, right? It wasn't because I didn't know the stuff. It was because I didn't do it. Listen, the truth is, people that get held back, it isn't most of the time, 90% of the time, isn't because they didn't know it. They didn't do it. Why? Because we were having recess when all day long. We was playing, man. We was playing. We were kids. We didn't want to take the responsibility of doing our homework and all those type of things. Well, same thing in life. If you find yourself repeating that same mistake over and over again, you're getting held back in life. You haven't acquired the lessons and to get you to graduate to the next level of life. And when the test comes, you fail the test. Why? Because you weren't physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally prepared to take on the next lesson in life. So that lesson now becomes a mistake and you never grow from it. Why? Because you didn't see it as a lesson. You saw it as a mistake. So you didn't embrace the mistake into a lesson. Therefore, you didn't learn from it. If you didn't learn from it, you didn't grow from it. And if you can't grow from it, you will repeat the same grade over and over again until what? Until you graduate from that life lesson. Now, some of us have been incarcerated, not me, but some of you out there have been incarcerated more than once, twice, 3 times, finding yourself in prison. How many times? Some of you have been divorced more than once. Some of you have been divorced 2 or 3 times. I remember when I decided I make the conscious decision, today's the day I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes. I remember the first time I said that, man. I'm like 24, 25 years old, right? I was 25 years old. And I said, I'm not going to smoke no more. How many times do you think I said that before it finally became reality? I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. Man, I was a professional quitter. I quit today. I kept quitting every hour on the hour. I said, today's it. I'm done, right? But I was addicted to nicotine. I didn't realize what was going on until I began to really meditate upon why was it that I can't seem to do it? I had to change my thinking process. I had to renew the way I think. I had to see this cigarette as the enemy, not my friend, not my buddy. It wasn't my friend. It was a cancer stick, right? That's what we call them, right? And I had to make a decision that my value was far more worthy and greater than I had in that moment of smoking a cigarette. So when I began to think like this, I began to change my perspective. And every time that thought came into my process, in my thought process, where, hey, I'm going to go ahead and have me a cigarette, I was able to check it before I manifested it. Oh, do you hear what I said? I was able to check it before I manifested my thought. Well, this is the same thing with anything else that's got you hung up, right? What's holding you back? If you entertain it long enough, you will do it. But you got to check it so before you manifest it. The moment that thought, whatever it is, you know what's holding you back. You know what it is you're doing. You know what it is what you're giving into every day, right? That's holding you back. And you want to be successful, but you're not willing to put the work into it. You're not willing to get up extra early. Come on now. I'm talking to me. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to all of us. Why? Because if you were born human, you're going to have some suffering, some pain and suffering in this life. But you got to come to a place where you let pain and suffering become your greatest teachers. Because if you don't, you will constantly repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again, right? Number one secret to staying out of prison. Remember when you left prison. Remember what it felt like. Remember when you were delivered from nicotine. Remember when you were delivered from pornography. Remember when you were delivered from being lustful, right? Having many wives, right? Divorced 3 or 4 times. Maybe it's alcohol that's got you bound up, locked up, right? And when you walk in deliverance, when you say enough is enough and you start to manifest that, you begin to feel pretty good about yourself, right? But you can't lose sight. Don't let your head get so big to where, you know what, all of a sudden you're too big for your britches, right? You got to stay on your P's and Q win. How long are you on probation for? Each and every day. Because say this with me, greater men than me, say it with me, greater men than me have fallen. Now say it with you. If you're a lady, greater women than me have fallen. Say it like who you are. Greater men than me have fallen. And when you can keep that mindset and you can stay focused with that, I promise you, you will be successful in every area of your life, but one area at a time. Right? Don't try to master the whole thing at the same time, because you will get lost and you will get tossed and you will come crashing down, right? But when you start to make that one decision, you know what? I'm going to start getting up early. I'm going to start running. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start reading. I want to start writing. Whatever it is, you got to know that the challenge is coming and something's going to try to take you out. Whatever that is that you've been triggered by, whatever that thing that your flesh loves, right? That your body loves to do. Right? It's going to try to raise up its ugly head and try to take you out. Remember, pain and suffering are our greatest teachers. And when you let them teach you, you will learn your lesson beyond the mistake. You will learn your lesson. And then when you remember the feeling you had when you walked free from whatever it was that was holding you back, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, when you're able to walk in that freedom, remember what it felt like. Remind yourself constantly. Remind yourself. Put yourself in a place of your meditation, of your prayer life, whatever it is you're doing that keeps you in check. Because how long are you in probation for? For the rest of your life. Hey, listen, my name is Ron Tijerina. Boy, I tell you what, this is Uncuffed. We're going to keep it real. I'm keeping it real. I hope you're keeping it real. And know this, that no matter what, I am rooting for you and you can do this. All right, everybody, I'm going to sign off. I just wanted to drop a quick line. That's all. Hope you enjoy it. Share this. Oh, yeah, you know what? One more thing. Like and subscribe this channel. Come on, let's grow this channel, everybody. Like and subscribe it. All right, everyone.